Ladies and gentlemen, it is the ending of an era. We have the final ESPN UFC card to break down. They are ending it on kind of a weak note. It's fight night, UFC fight night. We have Brandon Raw Dog Royval going against Manel Starboy Kape. The rest of the card, not looking exactly stellar, I wouldn't say. Taking place at the UFC Apex Center as well, so it's like kind of a pairing of a weak card and a weak arena. I don't know. Maybe that's Dana's way of giving a middle finger, a fuck you to ESPN on the way out. I don't know what the deal is. But this Saturday, December 13th, 9 o'clock Central Standard Time, so adjust accordingly. We will spend the main thrust of our time looking at the main fights, the main card, and then we'll breeze through the prelims and kind of gloss over some of those that I find interesting. First up, though, we have King Green. I thought he had switched back to Bobby Green. Who knows? On short notice against Lance Gibson Jr., who is making his debut. Let's take a look at this guy because I don't really know a ton about him. Fearless Lance Gibson Jr. is from Canada. Port Moody's 30 years old. 4 knockout wins, 3 submissions, 2 decisions, 1 KO loss to his name. Coming off a submission, got an RNC win over RJ Hoyt, then a TKO win over Charon Spain. Where does that name sound familiar? Kid Cookies. It's a hell of a nickname. And then he was KO'd by Vladimir Tokov. Then, of course, he's going against old Bobby King Green, 39 years old, 32-17. So, of course, has a pretty significant experience advantage. Bobby Green's going to have that over most people. 11 KO wins, 9 submission wins, 12 decisions. He's been KO'd 6 times, subbed 3 times, 8 decision losses. You would think experience alone would have to factor in here to some extent and then kind of edge it in favor of old Bobby Green. This guy doesn't exactly have a stellar record. I mean, it's not bad. 9-1's not like terrible. Bobby Green, minus 198. Probably take that one. You could probably take the under 2.5. I almost feel more comfortable with that because then at least if Lance Gibson wins, so long as it's basically within the distance, got 2.5 minutes left on the clock of the last round, you're good. Should be a fun scrap, though. Next, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu. I can never say that one. Nzechukwu versus Marcus Almeida Buchecha, whatever last name he wants to go by at that time. Decent heavyweight scrap. We've got Kennedy 14-6 against Marcus Almeida Buchecha. What was his record there? 5-2. Looking at Buchecha, 1 KO win, obviously 4 submissions. This guy, for those who don't know, has a pretty extensive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, pretty high credentials in the sport. Multiple-time champion all over the fucking place in every rule set, pretty much. So, of course, that kind of lends itself well to the submission wins there, the ground game, okay ground and pound, sort of that style. Striking leaves a lot to be desired from old Buchecha. I don't know. Maybe the testing has gotten to him as well. He doesn't look quite as like Jack City as he had over in 1FC, which is, I mean, all those dudes look a little saucy. So I don't know. We'll see what kind of shape he comes in this fight. Fairly decent sized heavyweight though. He's not exactly like massive. Jab, not great. Really, what I'd like to see, even the striking game obviously needs development, but what I'd like to see is maybe better wrestling. That's one of the things. It's like, all right, if you're going to be a jiu-jitsu guy, you at least got to have good wrestling so you can get the shot done on these dudes. I don't know, he just telegraphs it a lot. Going against a guy here, Kennedy Nzechukwu, however you say it, 33 years old, 14-6, 10 knockout wins, 1 sub, 3 decisions. Been KO'd twice, subbed twice, and 2 decision losses. So fairly well-rounded in that regard. Most recently coming off a heel hook loss to old Walter Walker, who's been on a bit of a tear with those. First round, 54 seconds in. That makes you wonder a little bit. It's like, all right, well, he's clearly got a hole in his game there. Walter Walker is just a freak at those. He's kind of snatching them up on everybody. So it's like, do you expect anybody going out there to be snatching up submissions against Kennedy? Not anybody, but would you expect maybe a multiple-time jiu-jitsu like world champion to pull it off? I don't know, potentially. I guess it depends on what kind of shape he comes in, and if he's been working on his takedown game, because Kennedy actually has fairly decent hips. Has an okay sprawl. It's not like spectacular, but he's okay. He's okay at getting back to his feet as well. Pretty big. He used to be a light heavyweight, and he's since moved up to heavyweight and is filled out pretty well. Good long stance. Hands down a little bit, but I would be worried about that against a high-level striker, Buchecha, given how much he telegraphs and everything. He's going to get knocked the fuck out on the feet if he stays standing with Kennedy. Good jab. Kind of slaps with the low kicks. They're not, like, super crazy, but I also think he's just using those to set up his hands a little bit. And then he does the good rear kick to the body and switches upstairs. Landed nice when he decided to open up against that Lukas Brzeski, however you say it. He was throwing like a lot of single 1-2 shots, shit like that. And then when he finally opened up, he hit, I think it was a 1-2-3, something like that, and he caught Lucas and put him down. So clear, old school kind of matchup. You got your heavy grappler versus your heavy striker. What are my odds here? Kennedy's a -130. Almeida's a +110. Method of victory, you could play the old hedge there. Almeida sub, Kennedy KO. I'd probably do the Kennedy KO, maybe a little bit more heavy than I would do the Almeida sub. One, given I think that's more likely to happen, but two, the odds there, +220, you could do a significant smaller bet and still end up either breaking even or maybe even coming out a little bit ahead, depending on how it breaks out. So play that one, maybe hedge it out, see how it goes. Next up, we have a featherweight bout. We have Melquizael Costa versus Morgan Charriere, the Pirate. Melky, I think he's like 29 years old. Let me pull him up here. This dude's really growing on me. I was not a big fan of this guy maybe like 2 or 3 fights ago of his, and since then, really has grown on me. Really starting to enjoy him. Fun stylistically, really gets after it. He's a pretty aggressive guy. 24-7, 7 knockout wins, 8 submissions, 9 decisions. He's been KO'd twice, subbed twice, and has 3 decision losses. Pretty decent amount of experience for his age. I mean, you see guys 10 years older than that, and that's the end of their career, and that's their record. So he's got, so long as he stays, pretty active as he has been, by the time he hits 35, he's going to have a shitload of fights. Fairly long in his stance, southpaw, kind of hittable. He stays a little bit planted in front of his opponents at times, but he does have like a fairly okay chin. He's been KO'd twice, but some of the shots he does eat, you're like, all right, well. Not the greatest wrestling, okay scrambles. He was getting taken down by Julian Erosa, but then was able to scramble out of that as Julian Erosa started to fade as the fight went on. Pretty good gas tank, I would say. Good staying power. Going against a guy here, old Morgan Charriere, France's own, the last Pirate. 30 years old, he's 21-11, 13 KOs, 3 subs, 5 decision wins. He's been subbed once, and he's lost by decision 10 times. So not really getting put away as the old last Pirate. He's been subbed 1 time, and that was... Where was that? Way back in the day. 2015, a dude snatched him up with a heel hook. So clearly he's been working on that. I don't know that he has any glaring holes in his game as far as grappling and stuff goes. His gas tank, not the greatest. Coming off the KO win over Nate Landwehr. I think it was July. Orthodox, pretty light on the feet, fairly springy, not like super planted. Decent takedown defense. Against like a high-level grappler, wrestler style, I worry how it would hold up, but thus far he's done pretty good. Seems to have good strong hips and a good sprawl. Good jab, of course, favors the striking. Hands do get a little bit low and kind of to the side when he's really starting to feel himself, but that's part of his style. That's why his head movement and stuff is as good as it is. Is susceptible to the low kick a little bit. Really, aside for that, I think he's probably going to have a bit of a speed and a power advantage here. Gets a little bit wild on the finish, but a lot of these guys do. He kind of gets the, lock, starts throwing at the hip from the hips, kind of the action figure style, as I always say, where he's just like, gah, 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 gah. But crazy power. I don't want to say crazy power, but pretty good power, pretty good speed. I would say that all the physical advantages go to Morgan. Melquizael, I've been wrong on him a couple times, and I feel like I'm going to pick against him, and then he's going to surprise the shit out of me and get it done. What are the odds on that one? Oh, straight up toss-up. Okay, well, I guess I'll go with the Pirate. assuming his gas tank holds up okay, like I said, I do think he's going to have the speed and the power advantage. He's going to be able to beat Costa to the punch. Maybe he's a little more technically sound in the kickboxing arena. So we'll see how it goes, dude. That's a toss-up fight. I would probably not play that at all. I'd just sit back and watch it. Potential fight of the night right there. Yeah, just good style matchup. One of these guys fights a little bit shorter in his style, and then the other dude a little bit longer, kind of rangier striking. Kind of the explosive dude versus the volume. It's going to be a good one. Next up, we have two Caesars getting at it. We have Cesar Almeida versus Cezary Oleksiejczuk, which I guess is just the Polish version of Caesar. 7-1-0 is old Cesar Almeida. How old is that guy? 37, I think. Is in my notes right here. 37, 7-1, 5 KO wins, 2 decision wins, and he's lost one time by decision. That was Roman Kopylov, who beat him by a split decision back in June of 24. Since then, 2 wins in a row, a decision and a KO. The most recent, a KO win over Abdul Razak Al Hassan, who had cracked him and hurt him, had him up against the cage, and was kind of just winging like fucking crazy, berserker barraging it. And Cesar Almeida tried to counter him, I think twice, with like the same left and missed the first time, or maybe he just didn't land clean. And then the second one, he landed clean and absolutely shut the lights off. Pretty good size heavyweight, middleweight, relatively tall, 6'1", so he's like a good even build, you know, kind of long limbs, kind of, I don't want to say lanky build, but he's relatively long limbed, fights fairly long, fairly rangy, good work with the lead leg. Hands come a little bit away from the face. He was kind of blocking to the outside, which I think is how Abdul actually caught him originally. He went around it with like a hook and dropped him. But he was able to shell up, stay pretty safe, and recover. So it's like, all right, he's got the fight IQ in some regards, in the way that he's able to protect himself while hurt. So, I mean, I don't know. Was that instinctual? Was it fight IQ? I don't know. Pretty crafty either way. I don't want to accept cookies. Going against a guy here I don't know a ton about old Cezary Oleksiejczuk, aside from that he's Mikhail Oleksiejczuk's brother. I watched one of his fights. Tom Breese, I believe, is who he was fighting. He fought Theo Haig on Dana White Contender Series, but it was like 20 seconds. Yeah, Tom Breese. Well, I could just scroll down. Tom Breese. Yeah, there you go. 25 years old, 16-3. He's got 9 KO wins, 2 subs, 5 decision wins. He's lost once by sub, twice by decision. Clearly favors the striking like Mikhail does. They actually fight kind of similar. He's got a somewhat long stance, got a good jab, decent sprawl, which is about all we saw in the Dana White Contender Series, and he just proceeded to hammer this dude out. Southpaw, if I didn't mention that already, looks to be in better shape than his brother, maybe a bit faster as well. Long stance, going to get chewed up by like low kicks, which I think Cesar Almeida has a fairly okay lead low kick, so he might be working that a fair bit. Not really huge on the combos. He was doing a lot of like the single shots, the 1-1-2s, kind of like we mentioned with Kennedy Nzechukwu. But then when he did finally land, I think it was with the 1-2. I think he hit him with the 2. He hurt Tom Breese, smelled blood in the water, and then proceeded to go into like berserker mode. And then was putting together all kinds of punches. So clearly has the ability. I don't know that he wants to open up very much against old Cesar Almeida here, as he might get countered and get fucking slept. What are the odds on this one? Interesting. See, I think Almeida at plus 178. I think there's value there. This is a fight that to me is pretty close. You could play maybe the under 2.5 just to be safe. Yeah, minus 185. You'd maybe parlay that with maybe one of the overs in the undercard or something like that. But the experience advantage goes to Cesary, however you say it, and obviously his brother's gonna be able to give him that UFC feel. I don't know, man. For plus 178, I think this is basically a toss-up. 2 explosive strikers. Has Cesary been slept? He hasn't. Does he have a better chin than his brother? That's the question. Either way, I'm taking Cesar Almeida. Fuck it. Next up, we have number 15 featherweight in the world, Giga Chikadze, a guy I really used to enjoy quite a bit, but we haven't seen him as much lately. Going against old Kevin Vallejo, young up-and-comer on the rise. Let me pull up old Giga here. 37 years young is old Giga, 15-5. 9 KO wins, 1 sub, 5 decisions. He's lost 1 time by sub, 4 times by decision. Most recently, he's had 2 losses in a row. The most recent one, though, being last April. He has a decision loss to old David Onama. Kind of a tall, thin build. Orthodox, of course, has the great kicks, has the Giga kick, as everyone knows, the liver kick. Goes high and low with those. Likes to turn the hips over as well once he's done a couple of them to kind of get the feints going, the fakes, and get you biting on those before he opens up. And then sometimes he'll use it and open up upstairs. Moves quite a bit, like real bouncy and kind of active on his feet outside of range. A lot of lateral movement. And then once he gets in, he kind of settles and likes to plant to generate the power, but then in turn that also makes him a little bit of a stationary target. Good jab, good straight. Okay hooks. He doesn't open up a ton with them, but when he does, it's usually pretty volatile. It's not a super high volume guy, not a ton of combos. It's kind of the 1 or 2 big shots, then he resets, 1 or 2 big shots, leg kick, liver kick, fucking then upstairs, that whole deal. Going against the guy here, Kevin Vallejo, young buck. He's 24 years old, is El Chino. 16-1, great record. 11 knockout wins, 2 subs, 3 decisions. 1 decision loss to his name. That was to Gene Silva back in September of 2023 on the Dana White Contender Series. Since then, it's been 5-fight win streak. All but 1 were finishes. He has an RNC, 3 KOs. KO, TKO, TKO, and then a decision. Most recent one, a decision win over Danny Silva back in August. A lot of experience for his age. That was something that stood out to me. 16-1. He's not super far behind old Giga, and Giga's got 13 years on him. Kind of a compact, shorter build, kind of the like fire hydrant, real stocky, muscular type of build. So I think Giga's going to have a pretty decent 6-inch reach advantage here. Hopefully he uses it, stays on the outside, pumps the jab, works the kicks, and kind of takes away some of Vallejos' movement. Fights somewhat short, does old Kevin Vallejo as well, so I worry about how well he's going to be able to get in and close the gap, but as long as he's figured that out, I actually think he'll do okay. Likes to come over the top with the big right hand. Reminds me in some ways of like a Josh Emmett with like a Ilya Topuria type of movement with the big overhand and kind of the way he closes the gap and the shorter stance and stuff. I would think Vallejos has the grappling and wrestling advantage here. I'd like to see him work that. Work Giga on the ground, kind of gas him out. Not stand there and trade shots with him and potentially give Giga a chance to win. Because I do think that's about the only way Giga is going to pull this one off. I don't think he's going to be out grappling old Vallejos. Minus 300. Kind of lopsided odds there. I would say it should be like a minus 250, minus 210, something like that. Over's probably the move, I would think here. I don't necessarily think Vallejos is going to go out there and put Giga away. Giga has been cracked a couple times, though, and I worry that his chin is starting to give. Man, I don't know. Again, this is a fight that you might just want to sit out and watch. This one has potential to be pretty fun. I think Vallejos is going to have to come forward quite a bit and try and close the gap there. Get inside of old Giga. Is he going to be able to do it? Yeah, man, I don't know. Sit out on this one. Just enjoy it. You guys probably know better than me on this one. If so, let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. I'm kind of torn. I do think Vallejos should win at minus 300. I don't know if that's quite right, those odds. But what can you do? Then we're on to the main event. Flyweight bout. We have Raw Dog Brandon Royval versus Starboy Manel Kape. 17-8. Coming off a loss is old Brandon Royval. He's 33 years old. I think it was the Joshua Van fight was his most recent one. Yeah, Joshua Van back in June beat him by decision. Relatively competitive fight. They landed a shitload of punches on each other. I think it was the most that Joshua Van's had landed on him yet, which says something. I mean, Josh Van known for his striking and everything, and Raw Dog was landing on him quite a bit, and he was in the fight. Springy southpaw, a lot of feints, a lot of lateral movement. Has a good snappy jab, good takedown defense. Really good balance on one leg. I can't remember who it was that had him up on one leg, and he was just bouncing and was popping the dude off of the one leg. Kicks are okay. He's not putting a ton of power behind him. I think he kind of just flings him out there like they're kind of slapping. I don't think he's trying to like turn him over and put a ton of like power into him like Taekwondo style. I think he's more going for speed. Good counter left. The chin comes up a bit in a lot of his exchanges. He got caught a few times. I notice he closes his eyes a little bit as well when he's getting in these shootouts, these exchanges. And against a slick counter striker with very accurate striking like Manel Kape, that might be a problem. Step in left, pulls the hand down, throws the left down the pipe. Really likes to fight a lot with the lead hand, kind of play the patty cake, which so does Manel Kape, so that's going to be kind of interesting to see how it goes. Steadily pumping the jab, slapping at the lead hand, grabbing it, yanking it down, that whole thing. Good wrestling, good scrambling. I would say the wrestling advantage probably goes to Brandon Royval in this fight. But Manel Kape has such good hips, good sprawl, and everything. I don't know that it's going to. I don't know if it's going to do Royval any good. He might shoot some takedowns and get tired here, so we'll see. But he does have a fairly decent gas tank and has a couple good subs in his game that he snatches up. Has a couple of his go-tos, so we'll see. Going against Starboy, 32 years old, 21-7, 13 KO wins, 5 subs, 3 decisions. Been subbed twice and lost 5 times by decision. Never been KO'd. Clearly favors the striking. Is a slick counter striker, as I mentioned. Coming off 2 wins in a row, 2 TKOs. The most recent to Asu Almabayev back in March. Kind of a shitty finish. He'd rake this dude's eyes multiple times, which he's done in quite a few of his fights. A little bit of a dirty fighter is old Manel Kape. Sticks the fingers out there, reaches for you, and kind of scrapes the eyes and shit. He's patient southpaw counter striker, though. Like I mentioned, he likes to play the patty cake game with the lead hand, kind of slapping at you. Starboy's interesting, man. He's kind of a dickhead to people. Pretty volatile personality, I guess you could say. He's debatably, arguably, who knows, maybe shown signs of gyno, which makes you wonder about steroid use and stuff. And then given his volatile explosions in his personality and stuff, it's like, are you roid raging? What's going on here? But all of that aside, I gotta say he's a really good fighter. I think he's a really good fighter. I think he's one of the best in this division. Really good hips, really strong sprawls. Just patient, looks really comfortable in there compared to a lot of these guys. It doesn't seem like the nerves really get to him. He kind of rises to the occasion. Good power, very accurate striking. Ducks a little bit into when he's slipping shots and stuff. He ducks down, ducks into a knee. I think that could potentially happen here. Royval likes to throw the knees occasionally. And I'd like to see a little more volume from Manel Kape. That's probably my biggest gripe from him is his volume. Who's going to win this fight? For the odds, I would say you probably play Royval. Maybe the over here. It's a competitive matchup, and I think Royval has the potential to surprise a lot of people and steal this fight with volume. Pepper Manel Kape, as long as he doesn't get caught and put away. Manel might slip and counter him and sleep his ass, but I think Royval has a fairly okay chin. I think he can weather this one. Josh Van didn't put him away. You would like to think that if Josh Van didn't, Manel Kape shouldn't. So I think Manel Kape should win, but I think the value is on Raw Dog Royval. So play him, put a half unit on him at plus 235 or whatever the fuck he was. I think it's worth it. Fun matchup, though. Real fun matchup. I think this one also kind of has some implications here. Manel Kape wins. I think it's going to be pretty hard to deny him a title shot here before too long. Basically, this is going to be it. Maybe one more, and then it's going to be undeniable. And Brandon Royval has been right up there at the top of the division for a while now. He's failed, I think, a couple times in title shots, but a good dominant win over Manel Kape. Some kind of notable performance here, I think, would do him some good and maybe throw him right back in title contention again. Taking a look at the prelims, though. 6 o'clock Central Time, so adjust accordingly. Not a ton that'll blow your hair back. Jamie Lynn Horth, Teresa Bleda, who cares? Alan Fry Jr. versus Guilherme Pat, who cares? Melissa Croden, Luana Santos. Luana Santos, pretty easy on the ice, who cares? Sean Sharaf versus Steven Asplund. Seen this Asplund guy several times, old titties or whatever. He jiggled his tits after his last knockout. Interesting fight. You could probably take some unders here. Take the unders in the heavyweights, the overs in the gals, pair it all together. You probably have a pretty juicy parlay. We have the fucking tried and true Neil Magny versus Yaroslav Amosov. Fun scrap. I like Neil Magny. Been around for forever. Solid vet. I think he might get wrecked here. Oh, Yaroslav is pretty fucking good. You might guess that from a 28-1 record. Jeez. 9 KOs, 11 subs, 8 decisions. Been KO'd 1 time. That was by Jason Jackson back in 2023. And then he had a fight back in March. He won by an anaconda choke over Curtis Millender, what are the odds on that? Neil Magny plus 300. I think that's probably, that's probably about right. Yaroslav's probably going to finish him. You take Yaroslav inside the distance. What is the odds on the inside the distance? Even money. You could do that. Then you could hedge it with Neil Magny just doing Neil Magny shit. Sometimes people got to get Magnied out here. He's kind of due for one, so you could always hedge it if you wanted, but I don't see it happening. Yaroslav's probably going to finish him. Then you got Joanderson Brito versus Isaac Thompson. Joanderson Brito's pretty fun fighter, pretty explosive, fades a bit. Isaac Thompson, we don't know a shitload about. Let's see him. 9-2, not a bad record. 4-1-4, 23, young buck, 1 KO, 1 decision. Well, the experience advantage obviously goes for Brito. I'd say probably him. I don't know. Shit. And then you got, this is a fun one, Amanda Lemos versus Jillian Robertson. We're Jillian Robertson fans in this house. She's got great grappling game, great submissions, jiu-jitsu, dominant on the ground, good TKO, ground and pound game on the ground as well. Amanda Lemos, pretty heavy striker, has an okay guillotine. She jumps for it sometimes though and like loses position and shit. You would think a savvy grappler like Jillian Robertson would be able to either one, see that coming or just avoid it altogether. But I don't know. Jillian Robertson does shoot a little bit with her head, so I could potentially see Amanda Lemos clamping onto that, and then Jillian Robertson maybe getting stuck in half guard or something and having to work out of it, working either from there to mount or crossbody, and then maybe doing the Von Flew or getting out of there, and then Amanda Lemos scrambles back to her feet, gives up her back. Jillian Robertson gets in there, chokes the piss out of her. That would be best case scenario. Hopefully Jillian Robertson doesn't try and stand with her because, unfortunately, I think Amanda Lemos would potentially crack her and put her away. She hasn't looked great lately, Amanda Lemos, but she still has some pop. Jillian Robertson has been stung a couple times, and I don't know how well she reacts to the big shots that like somebody like Amanda Lemos is capable of bringing to you. But that is it. UFC Fight Night, Royval versus Kape. Kind of a dog shit card for the last one on the ESPN era. Maybe that's Dana White's way of giving a nice big fuck you to ESPN on the way out. But that is it. Let me know what your thoughts are on the card. Like, comment, follow, subscribe, do all the good stuff. And we will see you guys probably over break. I got some ideas for some videos. We'll crank out some content there. And then we will start the new year with the Paramount cards. See you then.